everyone, my name is Monet Warren and welcome to the Diary of a Single Woman. So today we are going to be continuing our series Daddy Issues, and last week in part one we talked about our timelines, right? It was just basically a map of what our father's role has been throughout the course of our lives. So I grouped mine by age, from 9 until 12 and from 15 to 18, what that relationship looked like. That was the best way that I could map it out. And so the homework for you all was to kind of do the same thing, and it was in your own way, whichever makes the most sense. It was basically just a timeline of what your father's role has been throughout the course of your life. Now today we are going to take it a step further and we're going to do some unpacking. We're going to do what I call the ugly work. And this is basically us just really trying to dig and understand how and why these daddy issues show up in our relationships with people. That's romantic relationships, that's in friendships and work relationships, and relationships with our siblings. Because typically how we show up in one relationship is indicative of how we show up in our other relationships. And so that's why it's super important to unpack how daddy issues are impacting us so that we can better manage how we show up in other relationships. Now, I know that this is not a popular thing to do. We typically spend a lot of time, right, trying to cover these things up. But just because we cover them and don't acknowledge them, it doesn't mean that they're not impacting our lives. It's actually quite the opposite. So by acknowledging them, by figuring out what's going on and how it impacts us, then we're able to better manage it and control it instead of it controlling us. Now, I don't know if any of you all have seen the new Star Wars, The Last Jedi. I'm a fan. Star Wars is so spiritual, it really is. But there was this really Kylo Ren, one of the characters, he's on the dark side. He made a statement to Rey that was so profound. He said that in order to become who we were meant to be, we have to kill the past, right? And so that's kind of what this video is about, what this series is about, is trying to figure out how our past has been impacting us so that we can shape how we behave in our future, right? And be more whole, be more open, be more able to receive and give love in a more healthier way instead of loving from this broken place caused by our daddy issues. What do I mean when I say how are daddy issues impacting your relationships? So daddy issues, obviously, they start as daddy issues, right? And our fathers plant the seeds, and then the relationships that we are in, that's what water the issues, and then they become life issues. They exist, they show themselves in the different relationships that we're in, but they're disguised because we don't like to think about daddy issues in the context of our friendships or in our relationships. And so what ends up happening is either we get into these relationships and we expect the person that we're in a relationship to kind of resolve or mitigate those daddy issues for us, or when they're unable to do that, that kind of reinforces the daddy issue. So if abandonment is one of our daddy issues, when we get into a relationship, we expect that person we're in a relationship with to make us feel like we're worthy of their presence, and that we want them to make us feel like they're never ever going to leave us, even though maybe a situation where the relationship just doesn't work out and they need to leave us. But we place these unrealistic expectations on people, and they're so unrealistic because we don't even understand them. We don't even know what they are. Give you a perfect example. I'm gonna put myself on blast here, but I know that I am not the only one who is like this. But this is real life, how daddy issues impact you when you are not cognizant of them. But have you ever been in a relationship with someone and you're like, you know what, well, if you just took my side more, then I would feel supported. And so that person does everything that they can to take your side and make you feel supported. But then you're like, well, if you would just call me more, then I wouldn't be like this. And then they call you more and you're still like this. So no matter what they do, you are still not happy. And it's still not making you feel the things that you are trying to feel. That is because you are trying to look to someone else to resolve a need or an issue that was not created by them. You gotta go back, gotta go back to that initial daddy issue and figure that out. And this is what I mean of like, how are your relationships being impacted? Take a look at that timeline and compare, what were your daddy relationships like during 20 to 25? And then what were your personal relationships looking like? And what were the things you expected of them? What were things that were unrealistic? And even in friendships, let me tell you, so abandonment issues, I keep on saying it, but abandonment issues is definitely one of mine. and it impacted even my friendships. Like, my girlfriends could not go on trips together and exclude me, because that would mean I'm cutting you off. Like, I was the cutoff queen. Ask anyone. Like, if someone is like, oh, how is Ebony doing, I'm like, Ebony who? Like, I would cut you off so quickly if you did something like that. And it's because my feelings were hurt and I had abandonment issues. But at that time, I didn't know how to put it into words and say, like, you guys didn't invite me and it made me feel left out because I had this daddy issue. No, I didn't understand it. Like, I didn't understand it that deeply. It was just I had this reaction, and then so that meant it was time for you to be cut off, and that just was what it was. But then I looked around and I'm like, I don't have no friends. Who wants to not have friends? Certainly not me. But I knew that it was a problem when I placed these unrealistic expectations on people. And so are you doing that? Are you in relationships? Are you someone who, if you have a partner, they can't spend extended absences away from you, or they have to call you every 10 minutes? You need to know where they are every second of every day. I was guilty of that at one point in my life as well. That is a way that your daddy issue could be impacting your personal relationships. And so it's really important to take a look at what were the things that I complained about the most in the relationship, and was it fair? Was it unrealistic? Was it too much? You really have to kind of unpack that and see where it came from, and only you can do that for you. So I encourage you, so the homework for this video would be to take a look at that timeline and just compare and contrast it with what your personal relationships were like. Take a look at, was there overlapping? Did this happen at the same time that my father told me that he didn't want anything to do with me, or did it happen at this time when, just figure that out. See if there's any congruencies throughout how you existed in your personal relationship and what things were going on in the relationship with your father. And there may be some answers there for you. Wrapping up part 2, it's really just examining how your daddy issues have manifested themselves throughout the course of your life in the various relationships that you've been involved in. Were there times where you were not the best version of yourself? Were there times where you placed expectations on someone that really probably didn't belong to them? Take a look at those spaces. Try to see what type of need was trying to be met at that time. When we pick up in part 3, we're going to be talking about moving on from daddy issues, right? So yes, part 2 is heavy, and we're talking about, and I'm asking you to think about and spend some time grappling with some things that are probably really uncomfortable, but part 3 gets better, right? Moving on from daddy issues, because the purpose is not for us to examine them and stay there. The purpose is really for us to examine and then make adjustments and move on and be better. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this video was helpful, and I will see you next time on part 3 of Daddy Issues.